Hello and welcome to the Aussie Football Passport, your one-stop pod for updates on your favourite Aussie men and women who are playing their club careers abroad. I'm your host, Alex, and this week there is plenty to cover. We've got Matildas news regarding their last games of the year, as well as a review of their game against Wales. We find out the Socceroos opponents for the November international window. There's a new segment to celebrate our 25th episode. Wow, can you believe it? And of course, an update on all our players and their club careers abroad. Let's wait no further and get straight into the headlines. All right, so let's start off with some Socceroos news. They will return to the US&A during the November men's international window to take on Venezuela and Colombia. The first match is to be played on November 14th local time, and it will see the Socceroos travel to Houston, Texas to face Venezuela at the Shell Energy Stadium, which is set to be a venue used as part of the FIFA World Cup in 2026. The second of the stateside doubleheader will see the Socceroos take on Colombia at Citi Field in Queens, New York on November 18th local time, which is another venue to be used at the World Cup next year. So you can see why the Socceroos have chosen both of those fields, and thankfully they were available. Of course, there was a rumor going around that Australia were trying to tee up another friendly with Argentina, this time in India, but that one fell through. And I think that is probably not such a bad thing, as our lads can get a little bit more acclimatized to the conditions in the US&A, and then watch us get drawn in Mexico or Canada next year. Haha, good joke. Anyway, let's move on. The Matildas will head to Adelaide to take on New Zealand at Cooper Stadium on Tuesday, the 2nd of December. Kickoff will be 8 p.m. Local time, so do some good maths. Good luck with that. I think Adelaide is about half an hour behind New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, all those states that have daylight savings. So, I'll leave the rest of the maths to you. Anyway, it's not my strong point. So it will be the first time that the Matildas have been in Adelaide since May 2024. It'll be the second and final game of that two-match series against New Zealand in the next international window for the women, which is over the end of November and the start of December. More importantly, that game will actually be broadcast on free-to-air on Channel 10. So the first game against New Zealand will not be broadcast on Channel 10. It will be behind the paywall on Paramount Plus. The second game will be on Channel 10. Now, to the Matildas game, the first of their tour of the UK, where they had a 2-1 win over Wales. Coach Joe Montemurro named a starting 11 with a mix of experience and up-and-coming talent, and it was headlined by Sam Kerr's first start in the national team colours in 725 days. Can you believe it? Hayley Raso was the captain in what was her 100th appearance for Australia. She is the 17th player to reach that milestone in Matilda's history. So congratulations to Hayley on that landmark appearance. Now, Courtney Vine appeared in the green and gold for the first time since the Paris Olympics last year. She was introduced as a late second half substitute in this game. The Matildas, let's get onto their actual performance. They found the breakthrough in the 27th minute. It was Caitlin Ford who won a free kick just outside the penalty area. And Courtney Nevin, our Women's Player of the Week from last week, she aimed for the front post with a free kick and the ball stuck through and in for her first international goal. So she is in a rich vein of form lately, Courtney. So great to see. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Joe does with that left back position, whether Courtney Nevin holds it or whether Steph Catley moves back into that left back position and Courtney is the backup. So we'll have to wait and see. Of course, Steph is playing as a centre back exclusively now for Arsenal. So some interesting little tweaks and variations that Joe will have to think about when he selects his side against England. So Wales started the second half strongly, looking for that equaliser, and they found it in the 55th minute of this game. There was confusion at the back for the Matildas, of course, with those couple of switches there in the back four. The ball fell to 18-year-old Marad Griffiths as a result, and she lifted the ball over Tegan Micah to score her first international goal. So a nice thing for Marad, of course, with the Welsh team celebrating the retirement of Jess Fishlock as well, her last international. Now, getting back to the game again, after some wonderful build-up play between Holly McNamara, Ellie Carpenter, and Kyra Cooney Cross, our player of the week scored the winner with 5 minutes remaining to cap a good display from our Matildas. So you'll have to stick around if you want to find out who our women's player of the week was. What about that for a hook? I am getting a little bit better at this. Some would say, some will probably disagree. Anyway, the next game is against England, and that will be on Wednesday morning, local Australian time, or Tuesday night if you are in the UK. We will provide analysis of that game in the next episode. All right, now to that new sort of mini segment or segment within a segment. It's injury news. It's something we don't want to hear, obviously, but it is something that I need to do to keep you updated on all the latest injuries with our Aussies abroad. So also a good spot for a plug if you're a sponsor, if you're listening, maybe Voltaren or someone like that, reach out and we'll put you into the show here. Anyway, enough of that shameless marketing there. Let's get into the injury news. So just before recording, I've had a look at Emily Gilnick's social media and she's posted some photos of herself back on the training pitch with her team. So that looks like it's a good sign. There is no official information, as you can imagine. There's not a whole lot out there, unfortunately, and my Spanish is not so good, believe it or not. But yeah, we'll keep you posted. But hopefully she's involved this week for Monterrey at the weekend as the women's club football continues after that international break. Now to Jordan Boss. What we were sincerely hoping didn't happen has happened on the weekend. He was substituted off in Feyenoord's loss to PSV in that top-of-the-table clash in the Netherlands. We are still waiting for official confirmation on what the injury is and, of course, the timeline involved, but it is believed to be a hamstring injury. So Boss has a history of hamstring injuries. One in fact, kept him out for 4 months of last season. So let's hope it's not the same hamstring. I don't think it really matters too much because hamstring injuries aren't very good or very nice. Either way, we wish Jordan a speedy recovery. Now, Portsmouth coach John Mousinho has delivered a positive update on our man, Adrian Segicic. He was quoted as saying, "It's not as bad as we first thought. There's no surgery needed, and we're hoping that he'll be back within 4 to 6 weeks." And the injury was on his ankle, I should point out. Now, for all you regular listeners, you've probably been wondering why we haven't been mentioning our super sub, Brad Smith, on the podcast lately. Well, it turns out that he has a muscle injury, and unfortunately, there is no known return date on that one. So we wish Brad all the best, and we hope to see him back for FC Cincinnati as the finals kick off in the MLS just over the weekend just gone. Whether he will play a part in that or whether it will be next season that we see Brad Smith again, we will keep you updated. Now, we've gone back and forth, but let's head back to Portsmouth, where Hayden Matthews has been cleared of any major damage after suffering cramp and being substituted off for Portsmouth in their game on the weekend. So that is it for the injury news, and that is it for the weekly wrap. So let us know if you've enjoyed the injury news updates there. Let us know on our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Just type in the Aussie Football Passport and you should be able to find us. All right, so that's it. Let's move on to the weekly wrap, where, of course, we've got no women's club action, but we've got plenty of men's action to cover for you this week. All right, weekly wrap time, and let's start, as per usual, in the United Kingdom, specifically in England and Wales in the second division, also known as the Championship, where Cameron Burgess played a full game for Swansea City in a 1-0 loss to QPR in midweek. He then backed it up with a full game for his side in a 2-1 win over Norwich City this time. The Championship, of course, having midweek and weekend fixtures. Now, Lewis Miller, there was a bit of an injury scare for him recently, but it looks like he is in full fitness because he played a full game for Blackburn in a 3-1 loss to Sheffield United in midweek. He then played a full game for his side and provided an assist in a 2-1 win over Southampton. So congratulations, Lewis. That is outstanding stuff. Now, Hayden Matthews, of course, we mentioned him earlier in that injury news, but before that, he actually made an appearance in Portsmouth's midweek game. He came on in the 80th minute as a substitute as his side lost 2-1 to league leaders Coventry City. This was the game where Adrian Segacic injured his ankle. He was also a substitute, but only lasted 10 minutes until that ankle injury forced him off the pitch. Now, getting back to Hayden Matthews, on the weekend, he played 77 minutes, and then was subbed off, of course, with that cramp injury. But guess what he also did? He also scored the only goal of the game. The only problem was it was in the wrong net, and it cost his side in a 1-0 loss to Stoke City. Oof, poor Hayden. Let's hope he can bounce back this weekend for Portsmouth. Now, Nestri Irankunda, he played the first half for Watford in a 2-1 win over West Brom in their midweek game. He then came off the bench in the 64th minute as his side lost 3-1 to league leaders Coventry City at the weekend. Now, Sam Silvera, he was substituted on for Middlesbrough at halftime in a 1-1 draw with Wrexham. That was on the weekend. Riley McGree was an unused substitute for that game. Both players were in their side's midweek game, which was a 1-0 win over Sheffield United, but they were both unused substitutes in that one, if you can follow that one. All right, now, Callum Elder, he played the full game and earned a clean sheet for Derby as they beat Norwich City 1-0. He then repeated the trick, playing another full game as his side won 1-0 over QPR at the weekend. Now let's drop down a division to League One, where Alex Robertson, the recently returned Socceroo, but still eligible to play for Peru and Scotland and England and a couple other countries. Anyway, he started and played 77 minutes for Cardiff City in their 0-0 draw with Bolton Wanderers. Joe Gauci, he played the full game in goal for Port Vale as they went down 3-0 to Stockport. Oof, that's rough. Now, let's head up to Scotland, where Kasuni Yengi played 19 minutes off the bench for Aberdeen as they were thrashed 6-0 by AEK Athens in Conference League action in midweek. Now to Aberdeen's weekend game. It was against Hibs, where Martin Boyle came off the bench in the 60th minute for his side, while Jack Idale played the full game as Hibs went out 2-1 winners over Aberdeen. Nicholas Milanovic came off the bench at halftime for Aberdeen, while Nick Suman was an unused substitute and Kasuni Yengi was not in the matchday squad. Cameron Devlin, he played a full game for Hearts in a important 3-1 win over Celtic. Can you believe it? Celtic lost. Wow, incredible. Anyway, it means that Hearts are now 8 points clear at the top of the table, I should say, and it has resulted in Brendan Rodgers losing his job, resigning from Celtic. So that's massive, and a bit of a war of words have erupted between him and one of the board. But is it time for Celtic to put out the bat signal for Ange Postecoglou? We shall wait and see. We'll definitely keep you updated on that one. Now, Keanu Bacchus played the full game for his side, St Mirren, as they went down 3-1 to Dundee United. Ryan Strain was not in the matchday squad for Dundee, and you might be wondering, there's a particular Dundee player that we haven't mentioned there, so stay tuned later on in the episode and we will make mention of him, I promise. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, he played 81 minutes and scored a goal in Motherwell's 2-1 win over Livingston. That goal was a penalty as well, I should add. His teammate and fellow Aussie, Johnny Katrumbis, played 4 minutes off the bench, whilst Oscar Priestman was an unused substitute. For Livingston, Teti Yengi played 22 minutes off the bench, and of course, Ryan McGowan continues his recovery from injury, where he had a nasty infection, and it's kept him out of action for 7 weeks, and probably should have mentioned that earlier in the injury update section. We still don't have a return date for McGowan, but we'll keep you updated on that one. Now to Italy. Speaking of defenders, Alessandro Ciccati, he played a full game for his side Parma and helped them keep yet another clean sheet in another 0-0 draw, this time with Como. So impressive stuff considering that Como side is quite stacked up top with the likes of Alvaro Morata and coached by, of course, Cesc Fabregas. Now to Germany, where we've got some wonderful news where Connor Metcalf came off the bench in the 61st minute, whilst Jackson Irvine, all action Jackson, he also appeared off the bench in the 86th minute for their side, St. Pauli. Unfortunately, they did go down 2-0 to Eintracht Frankfurt. But yes, incredible stuff to see Irvine back on the pitch after 195 days on the sideline with that foot injury. Can you believe it? So fantastic stuff. Now to Spain, where Matt Ryan was in goal and played the full game for Levante in a 1-0 draw with RCD Mallorca. That was in the top division. Now in the second division in Spain, Alamabil played the first half for Castellon in a 1-0 loss to Udi Almeria. Now to Croatia, where Anthony Kalic came off the bench in the 84th minute for Hajduk Split in a 3-1 win over HNK Gorica. Still no news on that injury to Frank Karasic, but we will let you know once we have some information on that one. Now it's Jordan Moss. Of course, we talked about him earlier in that injury segment, but before that, he played 65 minutes as Feyenoord had a 3-1 win over Panathinaikos in the Europa League. He then played 72 minutes at the weekend for Feyenoord as they lost to PSV in the Dutch League 3-2. So that meant that PSV leveled up with Feyenoord. They're both on the same amount of points, so that should be a very interesting title race in the Dutch League this season. So, yes, we, of course, will keep you updated on Jordan's injury as well once we get more information. Max Ballard, he played 82 minutes for NAC Breda in a 3-3 draw with SC Heerenveen in the Eredivisie. Aden Rusic, he played the full game as Heracles Alamelo suffered a disappointing 3-0 loss to fellow relegation battlers FC Volendam. They've now conceded 10 goals in their last two matches, so the pressure is on Alamelo. Now let's head to Austria, where Jacob Italiano played a full game for Grazer AK in a 1-0 loss to LASK, and Grazer desperately need to break that losing streak. Noah Botic, he started and played 66 minutes as Austria Wien lost 3-0 to the powerhouse that is Red Bull Salzburg. Now to Denmark, where we had a lot of Aussies, of course, in that wonderful Randers team. Paul Itzo was in goal and kept a clean sheet and played the full game, whilst Mohamed Touré started and played 76 minutes, and his brother Musa played 15 minutes. It was a 0-0 draw with Sonderski Fodbold. Now to Norway, where Nick D'Agostino came off the bench in the 69th minute and scored the final goal in Vikings' 5-1 win over Bern FK. Gianni Stensnes came off the bench at halftime for Viking in that one. Now to Hungary, where Daniel Arzani finally got some minutes for his side at Ferencvárosi TC in a 2-1 loss to Zalaegerszegi TEFC. That is an absolute mouthful. I need to take some Hungarian lessons. If anyone has any Hungarian teachers out there, please let me know. Now to Serbia, where Milos Degenek played 68 minutes as TSC Baka Topola lost 2-1 to FK Radicni 1923. Now to the US&A, where playoff season is upon us, and Patrick Yazbek played 68 minutes for Nashville as they lost 3-1 to Inter Miami in the first of that 3-game series to decide who progresses to the next round, which of course is the conference semifinals. And of course, the USA just do it their own way, don't they? New York City FC will be playing on Wednesday morning, so check your local guides to see if you can tune in and watch our man Aidan O'Neill involved in that one. Now, let's round out our weekly wrap in Japan with Mitch Duke starting and playing 57 minutes for his side, Makaida Zelvia, as they drew 0-0 with Urawa Red Diamonds. Jason Guerrier played a full game for his side, Albrecht Niigata, as they drew 2-2 with Vissel Kobe. All right, that is it for the weekly wrap. Players of the week is up next. All right, players of the week time, and let's start with our women's player of the week. Whilst it was tempting to give the Women's Player of the Week award to Courtney Nevin again this week after scoring her first goal for the Matildas, we have decided to pivot and go and give the award to Caitlin Ford. She played across the final third in that game against Wales and was a constant menace for their defenders. It was, of course, only a matter of time before she broke their defence, which she did with her goal in the 85th minute, I should say, in that 2-1 victory. An outstanding game and the match-winning goal, of course, that is why she won the award this week. And let's see if she can back it up against some of her Arsenal teammates in the game against England. Now to our men's player of the week. It was another tough choice this week. We had plenty of heroic defenders and goalkeepers keeping clean sheets, and we had a few goal scorers to pick from as well. But ultimately, it was a straight shootout between two strikers in Scotland, and this week's men's player of the week, as promised earlier in the show, goes to Zach Sapsford. The Dundee United striker pulled his side back into the game against St Mirren at a crucial time, with St Mirren being up 1-0 at that point in time before he scored the equaliser. He was substituted off in the 76th minute before a penalty and a late goal was scored to round out that game 3-1. But if it wasn't for Zach's goal, who knows whether United would have went on and won that, and whether that game and the rest of his performances would have caught the eye of Socceroos coach Tony Popovich. I sincerely hope so, because that striking spot is still contentious, even though Mohamed Touré's performances of late in the green and gold have been very promising. We do need the depth, and I think that Zach Sapsford can provide that. All right, well, that is it for another week of the Aussie Football Passport. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you follow us on social media. As I've made mention earlier in the show, we are on X, Facebook, and Instagram. If you can please interact with the show by liking or rating it on whatever platform you are listening to this on, it will help people find the podcast and get the name out there. We're still on 5 reviews, 3 on Spotify and 2 on Apple Podcasts. So get reviewing, please, and those bonus episodes will come your way. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.